Bonjour. My name is Erick Calderon. I'm the founder and CEO of Artblocks. I have paper in my hand because the slide didn't work out, so please bear with me as I kind of explain some of these things that are visually oriented. Very grateful to be here today, very grateful to be in Paris. I'm really impressed with the turnout of this event, and last night we had some a wonderful turnout in the NFT factory. It was really good. So, my name's Erick. I'm the founder of a NFT platform called Artblocks that concentrates on generative art. Generative art is something that was a very niche art form up until just a few years, and something that's really gained some momentum and recognition as a medium for art. I am also known for creating a generative art project called the Chromie Squiggle, and more recently, 100 Untitled Spaces, both generative projects utilizing the Artblocks technology. I'm a digital art collector since 2017. I'm very proud to have claimed CryptoPunks early, and that's kind of when the light bulb moment went off in my head about the beauty of digital asset ownership. And I have 20 years experience as a business owner in the world of interior and architectural design. So, I kind of come from a kind of a crazy background, especially for a tech entrepreneur. I'm going to talk today on a concept that we call 1 of X, and this is something that I coined early on in the Artblocks life. And 1 of X, one second, refers to a unique item or a one of a kind, and denotes the uniqueness of an individual item, so this is the 1 of 1, connected intrinsically by code to a larger set, and this is where the of X stands for. Individual outputs, and this could be visual or audio, that are all part of a single family, all created with the same code, often with a pre-specified supply cap. What's kind of interesting, and we don't really see very often, is the idea of 1 of 1 of 1. A 1 of 1 of X concept, you have the ability to generate seemingly unlimited outputs. And what the artist is doing is they're setting a cap. They're setting a curated cap to how many outputs a generative algorithm can create. And something we don't see very often, and something I'm excited about, is the idea that you'd have a 1 of 1 of 1, where an algorithm is capable of generating 1 million outputs, but only one of those outputs is selected as the official artwork. And we'll be seeing more of that here soon. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Chromie Squiggle because it seems to be something that's a bit more recognizable. It's a rainbow squiggly line. In November 2020, I uploaded about 50 lines of code to the Ethereum blockchain one time. And with Artblocks and with other generative platforms, once a project is launched, every single purchase is actually self-serviced by the consumer. So the consumer generates a transaction, and that transaction generates randomness, and that randomness is combined with the code that's on the blockchain to generate a single output. There are over 9,700 Chromie Squiggles that have been minted over the last 2 years. Each is unique, but each clearly belongs to the same family. And again, I don't really have the visuals to demonstrate this, so I apologize. But the idea here is that we as humans have a tendency to lean towards individuality. We've noticed this as social media has expanded and as we have leaned into our presence as an individual that is unique in the internet. So 2 years later, we continue to mint new Chromie Squiggles with the same rules established immutably on-chain when we launched the project. And this is culminating as the medium of generative art is becoming recognized as a medium of art, with something I'm really proud to share, which is in June, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art will be acquiring Squiggle number 9,999. The last mint of the Chromie Squiggle will be entering the permanent collection of the LACMA. So let me explain a little bit how 1 of 1 of X works. This is using Artblocks technology, but there's a lot of really wonderful examples out there of generative minting technology. Artblocks is a blockchain-based platform that aims to create a decentralized and transparent art market using generative art, using code-based art. Artblocks is an example of the lowest friction use case of 1 of X technology. So we're going to build a little bit off of this, but when we talk about adoption, We talk about friction. There's a lot of friction in the NFT space. And pixels on a screen, graphics on a screen, are the lowest friction use case for this type of technology. The screen doesn't care whether you have one image or another. It doesn't cost you any more to display one image over another. Generative code is recorded on the blockchain one time. And then from there, we do this concept of on-demand generative minting, which is, like I mentioned earlier, there's a transaction, it generates a new output based on the code that was already recorded on chain. On-demand generative minting is all about transparency and the distribution mechanism. As an artist, I take one action, and I can generate 10,000 unique, verifiable outputs. Once the NFT exists, it acts as a certificate of authenticity, a record of provenance, and from there, everything from a piece of art in and of itself to what I'm about to really kind of lean into today, which is even just a receipt or a proof of ownership or a proof of purchase with utility built in. And I'm not talking about utility with airdrops. I'm talking about what does it look like when an NFT does not have to be scarce to have value? Because if Apple sells out their iPhones, they go and make more iPhones. And so to me, for mass adoption to exist, for the NFT, for this technology to have adoption beyond the speculative FOMO-based mechanics that we are all very aware of in this space, there needs to be value and there needs to be demand that is not just based on scarcity. And my job, and in this concept of 1/1 and through what we call our ArtBlocks Engine partners, we're out to show that NFTs can have value without scarcity. So, in the end, the final product of a 1/1 mint is a highly interoperable, undeniably authentic, low friction, zero volume, as in it takes up zero space, socially driven digital object that we are only now starting to understand the possibilities of what it unlocks in both manufacturing and social media. Inspiration for this. 20 years ago, I started a ceramic tile company in Houston, Texas. I brought tile from Spain and Italy, worked with interior designers and architects, specified tile for hotels, lobbies, homes. My wife's an architect. In 2004, I inquired on what it would cost to manufacture a tile, a custom tile. Like if I had a design idea, what it would cost. And the response back then was that you had to manufacture 50,000 square feet of the same image in order to get a custom tile. Fast forward to 2019, right before I started ArtBlocks, I was sending tile manufacturers 100 images in a zip folder, and they were sending me 100 tiles back. That advancement in manufacturing is way more interesting to me than higher resolution tile, larger tile, because it got so big that it didn't even fit in a shipping container, thinner tile, which was more eco-friendly but also broke if you looked at it. There was a lot of innovations that were happening in the tile industry, but the one that mattered to me and the one that applies to this concept of 1/1 and of manufacturing is this concept that manufacturers are adjusting their tooling and their research and development to enable cost parity between something that is identical across 1 million products to something that is unique across 1 million products. And I think manufacturers moving forward, especially with the innovations in the NFT space, will continue to index and will start shifting their research and development from bigger tiles and higher resolutions and all the things that at this point I don't really care about anymore, towards the ability to service individuals with individual products that are unique to them. So my hypothesis here is that in a world where it costs the same to produce 1 million items that are all unique as it costs to produce 1 million items that are all identical, humans will be compelled to purchase items that are unique to them as long as they belong to a family, as long as they belong to a larger group of items that are clearly identifiable as part of that family. And we've already seen some really great examples of that. So from fine art to embroidery, even modular home building, the applications in creativity and design are endless, and industries are on the cusp of a paradigm shift. as all of this is complemented with Web3, Web3-enabled ownership and provenance mechanisms, creative coding, and a generation of people compelled by the proposition of unique identity in the real and virtual worlds. Sorry again for the paper slides. It's kind of awkward. So I'm going to talk about this spectrum, starting with fine art on the top, and all the way down to a simple receipt, and everything in between. So starting with fine art, there are many generative art platforms out there, but there are two that stand out to me as being, hopefully, I mean, I'm very biased here, but as being the best and the most impactful, and that'd be Artblocks on Ethereum and FXHash on Tezos. These platforms have demonstrated the art form of generative art can be incredibly compelling and impactful to many people. They've inspired a new generation of collecting art in a way that has never been really experienced at that level before. And they've elevated a medium of generative art to what I consider to be almost Olympic levels by getting artworks acquired by international institutions. These platforms have demonstrated a powerful product market fit and a distribution mechanism by allowing an artist to create code one time and service 1, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000 individuals with a single action of uploading code. On-demand generative minting, therefore, is a journey from curiosity to delight. So I consider that the top because I started making art. That's why Artblocks exists. That's why we've had so much success, because there are a lot of people that have been passionately making art for a decade or more in this medium and have finally found a way to distribute their art in a way that feels right and it feels compatible, and in my opinion, some of the most digitally native artwork that can exist operating on the blockchain. From there, we have another engine partner named Bright Moments. They're a wonderful organization that has taken this concept of on-demand generative minting that you have in your computer screen, that we all have in the privacy of our homes, into real life. So they take on-demand generative minting, and then they curate this really special and meaningful in-person experience where it's not just press a button and mint, although I still love that very much, but it goes through a whole journey, often with the artist standing next to the collector, experiencing the artwork the moment that it's minted at the same time. And this is a really new paradigm shift in collecting artwork. And then along the same lines as that is you have in-person generative printing. I mean, you know, I guess maybe one level of friction lower than the computer screen is just sending something straight to a printer. Next, we have DIY artwork. This is for the nerdiest of the nerdiest. DIY artwork, as represented, for example, with one of our engine partners named Plottables.io, enables a home consumer to recreate a work of art that's a physical work of art to the exact specifications that an artist wanted it to be created, based on the way that an algorithm was put onto the blockchain and the way that that code generates outputs that can be read, in this case, for example, by a plotter. A plotter is a device that you stick a pen into and a robotic arm moves around and leaves marks on a piece of paper. I'm a maker, I'm a tinker. I've been 3D printing my whole, since you could buy a 3D printer. And to me, I picture this entire concept of DIY artwork and DIY art making into evolving into 3D printing, 3D printables, laser cuttables, tattooables. As consumers' access to these tools become more broadly accessible, you can buy a 3D printer for $150. An artist can create something that is direct to 3D print, and you can have an example of that artwork in your home in a few hours. Next, we have generative fashion. Fashion in and of itself can be a strong statement of individuality, even when everything looks the same. We love fashion. Direct-to-garment infusion of culture, which is a lot of what we're talking about with NFTs. Like some people say the cringeworthy NFTs are a financialization of culture. I used to cringe, but then you think about what YouTube is, and you realize that this is a financialization of culture, putting the power into the hands of the creators. So direct-to-garment infusion, in other words, printing and mint directly onto a garment is something that is already happening. And so we have a partner named IDCC, founded by the awesome G Money, who, if he's not here, he'll be here later, who set up an incredible setup at Art Basel in Miami where you came and you minted an output. And that output behind a glass screen where you could see the shirt was printed with that individual output immediately after it was minted, infused with an NFT the moment that it was minted, and then packaged into a box in a higher quality than what you would get at a high-end department store, all within 10 minutes. And then for the rest of Art Basel Miami, we saw people walking around with these shirts, tagging each other's NFTs using a technology called IYK in a way of sharing the participation within this larger family of the work as an individual. Shout out to those wearing the 90cc shirt out there. Then we have generative design. Design is a very broad category. It kind of becomes a catch-all within this space. Product designers will be empowered, and they already are, to give products a touch of individuality within their expectations of quality and aesthetics. Last night I was invited to an incredible opening at a department store here in Paris where one of my favorite artists was able to create a digital output specifically to be put through a loom, and a tapestry was hanging that was at least 5 foot by 8 foot as a direct pixel-to-pixel reinterpretation of that artwork. That will be a larger collection. And when you walk into someone's home that has that tapestry, you know, because you recognize the artwork and you recognize the hand of the artist, which is so important as we evolve into this noisy space, you will recognize that you have this tapestry that's part of the same collection, but yours is blue and yellow and the other one is green and black. And that differentiation is going to be really important as we move forward as individuals and start to explore what it means to have manufactured products catering to our individual designs. This leads to a really interesting concept within the design world, which is the network effect that we experience in art blocks and FX hash, and just in general in the NFT space, where everybody has individual outputs all the way back to the CryptoPunk. That network effect will now be experienced, but with consumer goods. Like, we talk about how high of a friction it is to operate within this space, but one day, a lot of consumer goods, an average consumer good, will be, by definition, an individual output, and potentially controlled by an NFT. I think there's massive implications for the interior design world here. Specifically, there's already a really wonderful opportunity, which is, an interior designer has access to now, just between art blocks and FX hash, over 1 million beautiful, curated, colorful artworks that can be hung in a home. But imagine when you hang artworks in a home and you start thinking about what the value is of that home and the value of the real estate, you also have the value of the portfolio of the art authenticated using blockchain technology. Okay, I'm almost done. Souvenirs, we have generative art souvenirs. We have a really wonderful partner that partnered with ATP, a tennis organization that partnered with ArtBlocks Engine to create a really wonderful souvenir for a tennis match, where the outputs created by Martin Grasser, one of my favorite artists in the space, represented individual shots taken by the tennis in the tennis match. I have this crazy thought here, okay, and I don't know if you guys have seen the Eiffel Tower. It turns on at night. It sparkles. It's really beautiful. Hear me out. So in terms of souvenirs, I can write an algorithm that controls all of the flashing lights on the Eiffel Tower. And Eiffel Tower, Bellagio fountains, large installations are very expensive to maintain. I think sometimes we take for granted how expensive it is to maintain these public artworks. I can write an algorithm that controls that Eiffel Tower, and I can say, hey, you spend $100. You mint an output from that algorithm, and you now control the Eiffel Tower. And you create a choreography based on generative algorithm that controls what the lights look like on the Eiffel Tower. When you get home, that same exact animation is fully on-chain, preserved as an NFT in your wallet, as a souvenir. And maybe a year later, you come back on your anniversary, and you're like, hey, watch this. And you send the information to the Eiffel Tower, and the Eiffel Tower re-shows that same moment, that individual output that you created as a small little human. You were able to recreate this massive effect on a massive monument in Paris, in Vegas, etc. I think there's a really big opportunity here, and something that people take for granted is these public works don't get very much maintenance. The city has to maintain them. If it costs me $100 to send information to the Eiffel Tower and I get my own output, maybe $50 goes to just maintaining the lights, and 50 goes to an artist. And this is a new ecosystem of empowering creators and giving creators recognition for the work that they do. Lastly, oh wait, no, I'm out of time. Well, generative receipts, very quickly, all I'll say about this. For NFTs that are individual but do not have a cap, that do not have an edition size and are unlimited, there's an opportunity here to demonstrate that NFTs can be valuable without scarcity. And if I run into you guys, feel free to chat and ask me questions about this, because I have a lot to say about that too. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.